Yes.
On it, we're on live.
Job boy.
We don't need you, Andy.
I know.
Right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the October Buckinghamshire Council Planning Committee meeting. Do we have any public speakers? If we could just say to members before we start the business, with your agreement, we will bring item 4 on the planning applications forward to the first one. So Councillor Hardcastle can hear us deliberate it. And Clark, if I just check with you, we can suspend standing orders if any member has a specific question they might want to ask. Thank you very much. Thank you. Please.
Oh, no, sorry, I thought we had to vote on.
Can we start with forms of absence then? Councillor Try, thank you very much. Declarations of interest. Councillor Duxbury, as usual.
If just in case there's ever a meeting of the North Bucks Planning Committee and I may have to play an active part in it, I always have to declare an interest so that I don't predetermine my views. As you can imagine, I have lots of views.
Thank you. Nobody else? Right, in that case, item 3 minutes to agree the minutes of the planning committee meeting held on the 23rd of September. You've all seen it.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. That takes us then very neatly on to planning applications. And as members of the group, we'll start with number 4, which although it's not in our parish, it does affect Buckingham. Firstly, because Maid's Morton is a neighbour, and secondly, because it will affect our own drainage problems. Councillor Harvey.
This falls in the category of no-brainer, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
Of course we could.
Yeah. Could I just announce what the item is? Public. We haven't done that yet.
You can.
Thank you.
I think we've already had it.
No, we have public listening. So this is Land or Hornut Drive in Foscott Road, variation of condition 13, foul water drainage scheme attached to planning permission. Outline application of all matters reserved except access for up to 170 dwellings, public open space and associated infrastructure. And the application is by David Wilson Holmes. Thank you, Councillor Harvey.
Well, I say again, it's a no-brainer. Of course we should object to this, because why on earth would we, or any council that's impacted, and we will be impacted by this, because the affluent flows through our parish, or certainly comes living close to it. Of course, they should wait. I mean, if David Wilson Holmes wants to put the money to improve the sewer facility so it actually has capacity, I'd be all for that. I don't know how many million that will cost them, but you know, that would be a good step in the right direction. But of course, you have to wait until Ofwat have signed up what have you and what they need to do. Because as we all know, and we have, you know, we have a illustrious person around the table at the moment who knows it by night, how many lorries are going back and forth to the sewage works because it is over capacity already. How on earth would we not object to this? So obviously I object this.
Thank you. Councillor Draper, then Councillor Schaefer, then Councillor Davis, then Mrs. Cummings.
Thank you for bringing this to our meeting, because it is absolutely ludicrous that a developer in this area with this level of flooding that is so well known about, that is so historical, that they have the audacity to say, oh, just never mind about that, but let's just take that bit out and we'll just steamroll ahead, we'll just carry on, because once we've built our development and we've sold our houses and we've moved on, it's not our problem. And I think it is absolutely outrageous. So I'm in full support of the opposition of this, because it is, as John said, it's mind-boggling that they even thought that this was an acceptable variation of condition.
Thank you. Anya.
Are we now informed? Do we stay seated since we come here to meeting rather than sit down? That's absolutely fine. That suits me just fine. I also think that we should oppose this. I will also, as a ward councillor, write my own objection, but that's a different story. I think what the developer are trying to argue that very often there isn't such a condition. And when it comes to preoccupation, i.e. when the houses have been built, then the water company is indeed legally obliged to connect to the both the fresh water and to the sewerage system, regardless of capacity. But it is absolutely in the council's right, and there is case law on this, I have now learned, that says so. It's in the right of the planning authority to put in a condition that this is sorted out, or that, you know, an assessment is done and that capacity is established before building starts. This is what, I believe somewhat unusually, but Buckinghamshire Council, or I think the predecessor council in this case, has done with this application. And the developer thinks, well, we don't normally do this. Well, yeah, but it is the case in this case, and there's no reason to change it just because they think it's going to be a bit of a bother. And sorry, they might obviously have significantly more sophisticated reasons for it, but so to cut. Now, I think I'll stop there, but I also think we should object.
Thank you, Fran.
Thank you, Mark. I think this goes quite nicely with Councillor Stutchbury's motion on the previous meeting for a start off. I seem to recall a while ago, I believe this committee wrote to the Secretary of State requesting some changes in the legislation regarding developers paying to improve the infrastructure of the sewerage and drainage and water capacity. I don't recall ever seeing any sort of answer to that. I think it's something that we've been talking about for quite a while. I believe that Councillor Stutchbury asked for the Osier Way development to be called in on these grounds, that there isn't the capacity, and it was refused. There is absolutely no way that we should, as a council, support David Wilson Homes trying to circumvent the planning approval that they've been given in order to try to get automatic connection to the drainage system, which is what it appears to me that they are trying to do. So I would absolutely wholeheartedly agree that we should very robustly oppose, that's the one.
Thank you.
Oppose it.
Carolyn, Buckingham Society.
Thank you. Yes, the Buckingham Society are clearly going to oppose this vehemently. It's a Weasley type of application that has at its heart the developer's interests, no interests of any of the community involved. And of course, it goes much wider than this application in Mains Morton. It affects, apart from our own river through Buckingham and the future developments here that are obviously coming this way, it affects a national perspective. Everybody knows the furor that has recently happened in the last year or so with sewage spills in rivers throughout the country. And here is a classic example of a condition that perhaps will help prevent that being swept aside and allowed to continue with the status quo. It is not acceptable, and it must be fought at every level. And in fact, to some credit to Buckinghamshire Council, I see that policy I5 in infrastructure, paragraph C, I did memorise this. Well done. Wastewater infrastructure. What day? Well, 2021. There is a little clause there that would actually give material consideration to refusing this application. I recommend it.
Thank you very much. Next on the list is Robin, then Jane, then Andy, then Anthony. Thank you. So, Robin.
I'm going to talk after you voted, just a minute. I won't get talked to on it.
Right.
Take part in it.
Okay, so we can go to Jane.
Well, I'm not getting very emotional tonight and very about these things. I just wonder whether, and again, it's my ignorance, but just objecting to it, you know, setting up with double exclamation marks. What can we actually do with capital letters? There's some really good points being made around the table here. Can we, you know, really gird our objection with some, you know, some really good legislation.
Oh, yeah, we've got all that lined up.
Yeah, so
And it would-
we object, we object with knobs on.
It would be oppose rather than object, not
Yes.
oppose in itself is a strong
Yes,
word.
yeah,
Thank you, is that it, Jane?
yeah.
Andy?
Thank you. Yeah, I feel very strongly about this, and I sometimes feel that we feel powerless to do things, and we get steamrolled into this. And I'm trying to see if we can get this issue into the mainstream media, so the Wilson homes can be shamed.
Yeah.
In the media of what they're doing, especially in light of what's been happening around the country with sewage damaging and flooding people's houses. And I'm sure they'll take up the story if you can somehow get it there.
Thank you, Anthony?
Yeah, Jane mentioned the emotion and sewage is an emotional issue, no doubt about it. But really, in my opinion, this boils down to a very simple thing. We require Buckinghamshire Council to be steadfast and standing behind the condition that they've laid down and not get pushed around. It's as simple as that, really.
Yeah.
Thank you. Lisa, did you want to say anything? Okay, right. I've just got a few things here. There are 13 objections at the moment to the Maids Morton application, plus, as we've heard from Pat tonight, Maids Morton Parish Council is about to post its online opposition on the portal. I've spoken to Kate Price, Pike, of Foskett Parish meeting, they'll be doing the same. Interestingly, Parks and Recreation, who are amongst those whose line got covered in sewage, no comment, and nothing from the environmental health team, apart from saying, just bear in mind, environmental health team, we have no comments to make about the application as it relates to the functions of a statutory sewerage undertaker. I find that quite extraordinary. A couple of things I will pick up. We've heard Carolyn about the condition 13. Condition 13 was quite deliberately put in place to safeguard the environment, and waiving it not only jeopardises that safeguarding but contravenes the requirements and obligations of VALP policies 15 and MMO006. Thus, the council would be breaching its own policies if it was to waive this condition. There are 2 pressure groups who are also involved in it. Now, I refer members back to our meeting. Where are we? This is when we considered phase 3 of Osier Way on the reserve matters. We opposed it with reference to 15 sewage management, capacity of water recycling centre. Members noted the caveats in a recent Anglian water response regarding Walnut Drive, Maids Morton, asked the matter of sewage disposal be settled before any planning decision is made. As yet, there is no comment from Anglian Water on this reserves matters application. It is also noted the discharge of condition on SUDS had not yet been satisfied. So we already have expressed an opinion on this in relation to Maids Morton. So if we were to oppose it tonight, we're just simply following up what we have already publicly stated. And the final thing I'll say, at the interim meeting, for the benefit of any members of the public watching, Councillor Lucy Draper raised the question of St Rumbold's Field flooding, which of course is part of David Wilson Homes. Thank you. If no one else is speaking, I'm going to propose that we oppose this application for everything we've heard. Before I do that, before we go to the vote, has anyone got any questions for Councillor Hardcastle, who's sitting patiently behind you? If so, we could suspend standing orders, but no, thank you. In that case, we can move to the vote. All those in favour of opposing for all the reasons given, which Catherine will obviously put into Blocks, that's everybody with the exception of Robin. Thank you, everybody. We could thank Councillor Hardcastle for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you for your support.
Good.
Thank you for the better
Certainly got what we wanted.
Yes, absolutely.
Just for information.
Yeah, Robin.
We are in a fortunate position that, one question from this council's concerns, which is a public record about the legislation around it. We are in the fortunate position that one questioned the drainage and sewage on many occasions, and they are a public record because I keep these things. And we are also mindful of the fact that in the most recent Growth and Infrastructure Committee, we discussed this, and I was in receipt of correspondence in regards to these concerns, and I am now pursuing those concerns. But I do think that it's important that around this, there's a quite often leader, I think the word is, in the legislation, which doesn't lend itself to common sense. I will make available, if anyone wants to see it, the response from the senior planning officer to that strange position that we find ourselves in, which was when Councillor Davies mentioned in your discussions that we discussed it here and we wrote to the Secretary of State, and that was the previous Secretary of State. So it might be worth with revisiting what that letter said and see whether at a future meeting
Definitely.
that the committee's minded to, not me, or that goes to full council to actually look at it, because we haven't seen that correspondence which was sent. It might be worth seeing it, seeing if it needs to be reinforced, and then if anything's needed to support that, very happy to do that. Because nothing more than being constant, diligent and approach to these things. And that's why I waited till the vote was taken, but those things is a public record and they are clearly on the record of what they've done and said.
Thank you, Robin. I could just check the town clerk. Could that go on the agenda for the next meeting?
It was a full council letter.
Full council.
Full council matter. I will say I did write and I did not get a response.
Try again.
We've got a new Secretary of State now.
Yeah.
Thank you for raising that, Robin. Right, in that case, we move on back to the original order of the planning applications. So number one on your list is Buckingham Football Ground, the Pavilion, Stratford Road. This is an application to replace the 4 floodlight masts with like for like 18mm high hinged masts with LED floodlights. The current ones are getting very old. They won't support the weight of the heavier LED floodlights. You've all seen Catherine's report on this.
Very good report.
Ecology, since she wrote a report, said they want an existing LUPS report on how much flooding there is at the moment, because they're concerned about the effect on bats and other wildlife on the river. And they also want cows to reduce the spillage should there be too much light. From what we've read in the reports, they've been very careful about making sure there isn't extra spillage.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
So, anyone have a view on this? Buckingham Society?
Well, Buckingham Society thanks Catherine for her excellent report, but it did seem to us that this was an improvement. There was less pollution, less lighting pollution, and so we had no objection.
Good.
Yeah.
Anyone else wish to speak? In that case, I propose that have no objection. Thank you. Seconded by Anthony. All those in favour? Everyone except Robin. Thank you. Item 2, 85 Western Avenue, a household application for an air source heat pump installation. We're obviously going to get more and more of these. Environmental Health have no objection on noise grounds. As you can see from the drawings and plans and photos Catherine provided, there's going to be no interference of neighbours on this. There is a lot of foliage and an electricity substation between the house and Western Avenue. She did raise the question about had the garage doors gone. No, they haven't gone. They're still there. They're just not shown on the plans. So there's nothing happening there. John.
I guess I'm a bit concerned that we're going to get, as you say, an increasing number of these applications. And I honestly think, why? If people are adding this to their homes, then I don't see any planning's business to be involved. So I would suggest that we register no objections to this, but also we write to our MP and say, what's happening in the future? Because this seems like it's going to create more and more work for already hard-pressed planning authorities. Change the legislation so this doesn't need planning application in the first place.
Thank you. That we did actually raise that at the briefing this afternoon, that maybe this is something that Buckinghamshire Council should be looking at, not requiring planning permission, because the government is encouraging us to fit these, and we should make the path as smooth as possible. Jane?
Well, personal experience, we had a air source heat pump fitted and we had to get planning permission and we got rather fed up about it. But actually, in the end, it came down to noise, and we had thought to put it on the outside of our property. The neighbours said they weren't too happy about that, so we brought it round into a corner nearer to our front door. And actually, it all worked much better. It was better protected from the weather, and some of the neighbours were happy. So I think it all comes down to noise. So if there's a way of saying, there'd be a regulation about the amount of noise, that would be sensible. But I agree. Otherwise, it does seem like a sledgehammer to crack it up.
Through you, Chairman, could I ask Jane, is yours noisy? I know that's an elusive concept.
It is noisy, yes.
Yes.
I mean, it's in my previous property out in Buckingham.
Yeah.
Not gas boiler here at Buckingham, but it certainly was noisy. I was where we put it, actually, we didn't get a noise, the neighbours didn't get a noise, but it certainly wasn't. It wasn't.
Wasn't silent. No.
No. It's, we know it's there. It's like
Okay.
Thank you. Caroline?
Yeah, we had a quick discussion about this along the lines I suspect you did too, in the sense that this is going to become more and more frequent as planning applications, and there is some question mark as to why it should be needed. But I think Jane has summed it up a little bit in the sense that there's noise and there can be a nuisance to neighbours. So really, as I see it, there should be a permitted development right for heat source pumps, but with the guidelines on a sort of national basis that gives sort of advice on noise levels and perhaps consultation with neighbours.
Thank you.
yeah.
Anyone else? In that case, John, if you let me propose it as we normally do, she'll take you on board. I propose that we have no objection to this, but we could have the rider. That we would encourage the local planning authority to allow these under
Unpermitted
development rights, as there is obviously the government is encouraging installing them, and we are going to see a lot more of these applications.
That's right.
Can I just say, Joe, if the intention is to basically set almost a Buckingham Town Council policy on heat pumps, I would suggest that should be a separate matter for where we actually do a little bit more research and present something to you rather than set a policy now just on the back of this. Because there are issues around and as I said, that the noise levels can be quite, if you had a bedroom window and if you underneath it.
So we could set that down for our November meeting for discussion. Yeah, I withdraw that bit of the second part. We could say that we have no, because of environmental health, given the okay, we have no objection. Seconded by Anthony, all those in favour? Thank you. And we will put that matter, bit of development rights, on the November agenda for discussion.
Yeah.
Thank you. Right, then the final planning application as such is White House Farm, Bolton Road, very straightforward. This is the farm which Berkeley Nicholson is developing. They've rebuilt a lot of the house. They want to take down the rotting Dutch barns and replace it with more permanent barns with solar panels on. There's no planning notice because there are no neighbours, so obviously not. So anyone have any comment on this? Lucy?
I think it's great.
Yeah.
It's nice, isn't it? We have an application coming before us that's already got solar panels.
Yeah. Well impressed with that.
House points all round.
So I propose we have no objection to that. Seconded by Anthony. All those in favour? Thank you. Now we have got, as you can see, there's 5 tree applications, one of which is number 130 Western Avenue, There has been concern amongst the tree wardens and councillors to whom this is circulated that there's not enough information about the felling of protected tree. All they've provided is a Google Earth photograph that could have been taken 10 years ago. It's a holly tree, it's a cherry tree, and there's a holly tree nearby. John.
I mean, Chairman, I would say that if any application comes in and all that they provide is a kind of Google Earth copy, then we say no. We want, you know, these are meant to be serious tree professionals who know their trade. Well, they should be submitting a bit more information than that in order to get permission than simply carving something off the internet with a screenshot, and that be it. So my answer is, with all of the applications here, that if there's only that, then automatically we object.
Yeah, Catherine, can I just check with you? That's the only one we need to decide.
Because the other ones, there's a 5-day notice to get through.
Yeah, thank you. Anthony.
Point of information, Chairman, the pictures from Google Earth and what have you indicate the pictures were done in 2011. So it's a little while ago.
13, not the 10 I.
No, but I just thought I'd have a quick look at that one, yeah.
Thank you. Right, so in that case, I propose that item A is 130 Western Avenue, that we object to this until further information is provided, as it is a protected tree. Seconded by Anthony.
Yeah.
John?
Sorry, I'm saying we object to all of them when they submitted the Google Earth photograph. Any of them that may submit the Google Earth photograph, we object.
Well, that would be something, we can't decide that tonight,
No.
that's something we can look at each time, yes, you're quite right.
Well, item 6.
Well, no, those have already been all approved, as Catherine said. Yeah, this is the only one that's still active.
114.
Fault of your prayer.
If you remember, these are officially not for consultation, so. So, all those in favour then, on number 8? Thank you. Sorry, could you put hands up again, please? Yep. Right. So that, Andy, were you voting?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's everyone except Robin, thank you. Thank you for that. Planning decisions to receive for information details of planning decisions made by Buckinghamshire Council. Garage Court in Oban Crescent. We oppose the demolition of garage, erection of 3 new dwellings and associated parking. We asked for a call-in, but it was refused, and the call-in was refused by not only the chairman and service director, but also the vice chairman of the Buckinghamshire Area Planning Committee, which goes against the constitution, which says it should only be the service director and the chairman, or in his absence, the vice chairman. So only 2 people, but again, this is 3 people calling, delegating that it shouldn't be called in. I did raise this morning at the Town and Parishes Planning Forum, and they are going to come back with us on whether or not the constitution has been changed without reference to anybody. Lucy.
Sorry, Chair, this just goes back to the previous thing. I've just noticed that the numbers at the beginning of the agenda don't line up for the tree applications of the numbers in the appendix.
Which one, sorry?
So 8 and 9 are switched around in the appendix as to what they are on the agenda. I just don't know if that would be
Not quite sure
important.
what you mean, sorry.
So in the appendix, you've got item number 8 is 15 Morton Drive, but in the beginning of the
No, number 8 is 130 Western Avenue on the agenda.
but in the appendix.
Oh, right, well,
I understand.
Yeah, so just
Sorry.
for any clarification,
Oh, okay.
that's down.
no, I see what you mean, yeah. Yeah. The chart session, 8 and 9.
Well, you Margaret.
As we were, going back to the garages, we oppose this on the grounds of the ownership of the Leylandi hedge, which developers want to cut back, and apparently, and we've tried to get more advice on this, the landowner has still not been consulted about this, it's his hedge. Lack of street lighting, and lack of pavements, and the fact that economic development took no part in this, no comments at all, despite the fact there's going to be the loss of workshops and recently improved workshops which belong to Fairhive, but we lost out on that one. Yeah, John.
I just think this is a classic case of where a call-in would have just made a difference. I was buttonholed by a local resident who I think lives close to this development site, and he's aghast that there was never any democratic decision made about it, but merely one that was for delegated powers. And I frankly just don't get it. When there's clearly some controversy, at the very least, surely our planning authority should be prepared to listen to some arguments. I just think it's ultimately very undemocratic and ultimately inefficient as well, not to allow that to occur. And I go back to my view, is that the rewritten constitution that was held up as being allowing people to have more of a say, ultimately gave much more power to the service director and the chair. Well, even the service director can self-chair if they don't want to. So I just think it's anti-democratic, and I'm very sad.
Thank you, John. Sorry, Robin. I mean,
Just point of reference, it was January 2023 when we questioned elements around sewage and drainage, and we went to cabinet and questioned those from this council's concerns. So on the call-ins,
you can't quite hear you, Robin.
it was 2023 when we raised the issue around drainage and sewage in cabinet, and that response is in the January 2023 cabinet minutes if you want to read it. The issue around the call-in, we have had great difficulty getting 3-member call-ins. The constitution is, let's say, less than constructive in a multi-disciplined ward in political sense. Doesn't seem to be working in the interests of any. And when the chairman says the constitution states that it will be the chair and the senior member of planning is correct, there's been no constitution change brought to the council at this point. So I should imagine it's some sort of customer practice which is happening internally, which have no effect on the constitution. So those questions around the constitution are not been to council, so it must be just manners or customer practice what they're doing, that they all consult on it. But in the end, the constitution says it's down to the chairman and the senior officer. There has been no change. So how we approach that, or you approach that, is going to be a question of information. The constitution is published on the website. You could look at it if you've got a live document ahead of you. You can read it, but it is difficult. We haven't been successful in getting call-ins. I've suffered greatly when I've attempted to. I don't know how Annie has found it, but it's quite difficult. And this is about residents getting a call-in. We did historically amend the constitution by coincidence when we, because the parish were not getting a voice, we amended the constitution to allow the parishes to have a voice in 2021. That worked well, didn't it? Because it didn't seem like, even though you call anything in, they took any notice of it whatsoever. So I think this is a case of keep soldiering on at these matters, and a democratic accountability doesn't seem to be an expense that they wish to spend money on. So but punishing individual members of the constitution probably isn't that smart. So we need to actually write to legal and democratic services to see when there'll be an update and how that's going to be updated, and if it's going to be updated in favour of more democracy. I fear not, and I think it's to do with these delegated powers. And if you look at the delegated powers, so many of them, and they publish the figures which the chairman knows, and they're quite high, the amount of applications which are done under delegated powers. But coincidentally, all the meetings that I attend, when we occasionally have a meeting of Buckinghamshire Planning Authority for information, it's always a 3-member calling, or it's an application which is relation to land which belongs to the Buckinghamshire Council, or land that a councillor has an interest in which case it has to go to committee legally and cannot be decided separately. So I would suggest that we think carefully how we ask the question, but I think it's a question of democratic services. And not proportion blame at individuals, but the constitution.
If I could just say, Robin, this question of the question I asked this morning at the planning forum.
Yeah.
In public forum, and the question I asked, if the constitution has been changed to give 3 persons, not 2, delegated authority, please inform Buckinghamshire Council when and by whom. And they said they'll come back with an answer.
Well, I would love to read that answer.
Yeah, so that question has been asked by Buckinghamshire Council.
Thank you.
John.
Yeah, just to say that when the new wards go live in May next year, and obviously the number of shire councils for our area will reduce, that's going to have a knock-on effect to the constitution. So there's going to have to be a constitutional review. And I think we need to get in early with our views about that.
Thank you. Fran?
Very much so, John. Seems that what Buckingham will be one of the very few 3-member wards. Winslow will be a 1-member ward where it's currently 3. There's going to be a huge reduction in the number of councillors. So yeah, it definitely needs to be sorted out prior to that, doesn't it?
Thank you. If we could move on, Old Town Hall, Market Square. We were opposed to the illuminated lettering. Permission has been given. Villiers ballroom only on the sign, unlit internally over the door, no up or down lighters, no reconsultation on changes. The planning officer made a big thing about it being a conference centre, and it's the only way the Villiers Hotel could advertise it as a conference centre, yet the sign says Villiers ballroom. Also, nothing about the blue canopies, to which we objected. But what's done is done. It has been noted that the signage is still internally lit. Catherine has gone to enforcement, and the suggestion is probably that they can have it for 6 months until the appeal period runs out, or they might have it for 6 months, but we'll just have to wait and see on that. Right, nothing else on those applications. Planning appeal, the old telephone exchange Market Hill, to which we're opposed. They lost their appeal. The planning inspector dismissed the appeal. Quite interestingly, for everybody's notice, on 3 grounds. 1, it would fail to reflect the local distinctiveness and townscape character of the locality. Design details which have been included would not be sufficient to mitigate the adverse visual effects. 2, as a result of the height, bulk and massing of the building, it would appear as a prominent addition to the street scene generally would fail to relate to the existing scale and context of the surrounding area. It would as a result fail to preserve the character and appearance of the Buckingham conservation area. Well done, Buckingham Society. And 3, the proposal would fail to result in acceptable living conditions for future occupiers in terms of noise. That's from the post office comings and goings early in the morning. The proposal would therefore be in conflict with policy BE3 of the 2021 plan. So on all those grounds, it failed. Anyone, any comments on those? No? Thank you. Item 6, Buckinghamshire Council committee meetings. See the list there. The only one that strategic sites on the 24th, we haven't heard if there's going to be anything yet. 6th of November, North Butt area. 7th of November, Transport, Environment and Climate Change Select Committee. Robin.
Yeah, we attended Growth and Infrastructure Select Committee on the 26th of September, and we questioned very much around the areas around what you were discussing tonight, around drains and infrastructure and the implements of the way that they were going to do it. Still haven't managed to resolve the dispute between the, quite interesting, even though as I stated earlier, we had a statement in 2023 around the legalities and implementation. When pulling them points out in the meeting, it seemed that it was stated in the meeting that and it is a public record, it was stated that they have no occasion have they come against anywhere where a development has gone in without drainage and sewage being implemented. Coincidentally, that's when I got correspondence from Maid Morton instantly, because they obviously watched the meeting, saying that this isn't true or incorrect. And I'm now currently stuck in an exchange with an officer about those matters. But it is interesting that there seems to be different views around this, and it's quite concerning. I mean, it just encouraged me to go to more growth in the infrastructure committees in the future. And I'm sure they'll be pleased to have me, or not, whatever the case. But it is on the public record. Go and look at it. It's a real interesting, the discussion around it's quite deep and interesting. Basically, it relates to what we discussed tonight.
Thank you. Item 7, Town and Parish Council Quarterly Forum. As we heard at interim, Catherine and I attended it online this morning.
Saturdays is always a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of Teams issues this morning, and we both weren't able to get on for the first 10-15 minutes, but we think we're on top of it all. Housing supply quandary, which is their own terminology. We were told that the residual number of homes identified in the local plan to December 23 was a worst case scenario of 35,000. They're now told the residual number to be identified under the July 2024 NPPF is 60,900 for the county. So that's the best figures we can get at the moment about what the housing need, land housing supply need will be. Again, that is a work in progress. Neighbourhood plans update. Number of plans locally have been approved. Most recently made was Whitchurch, was made in August this year. There's a referendum for Drayton Parslow on the 24th of October. Interestingly, on September the 9th, Beaconsfield Town Council held their neighbourhood plan referendum, and less than 50% of voters said yes. So it's been dropped.
Oh.
There is a reason. I did have a chat with Leonie today, our town planning consultant, and she said, where are we? Right. In the case of Beaconsfield, it's very rare a plan fails referendum. The current election regulations at the time, i.e. PERDA, prevented both the town and Buckinghamshire councils from publicly challenging misinformation being spread by a hostile Vote No campaign about managing future development in the green belt around the town. Sheena came back to me and said that she noted that when Winslow held their vote, they had balloons all around the town and were encouraging people to vote. And she said perhaps under our neighbourhood plan, we should be slightly more proactive when we get nearer to a referendum.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think there may have been an additional issue in Beaconsfield with general satisfaction with the town council there. So I can't say any more than that, but I think there might have been some murmurings around what the town as a whole. I mean, I don't want to swear by it, but I think there may have been confounding issues.
Yeah, it was all to do with the green belt around the town. That was the big issue.
Probably how we all at a disadvantage. I actually know the town clerk, and I spoke through it on the morning of it being the vote going through, and asked reasons because I'd rolled up the phone because I was concerned. Had nothing to do with discouragement about the town council. Had nothing to do with all that. It was a singly minded, strong-willed campaign led by an organisation in the parish who were able to muster a negative against the plan. What they've managed to achieve, though, is a situation where they have no town plan. What they've managed to achieve is a situation where they're totally reliant on whenever a Buckinghamshire plan is produced now, what they're totally reliant on, whether you agree or don't agree with the NPPF, is what the NPPF gives them. So their great cry was to defend our community by defeating the plan, and what they've basically done is gone out into the field with a large rifle and managed to commit a great harm to their community, because they've left with nothing. Even if the plan had been not satisfactory to everybody's point of view, any local neighbourhood plan would have offered some protection against all the other things. So it was a very strong campaign, and I think, thank you, Chairman, for bringing this up, because I think we need to consider very carefully how our positioning is round this. We are in a febrile political situation. We've been demonstrated what a political campaign can do to a neighbourhood plan, and the money we've invested in this plan, the hours that the chairman, vice chairman, the Buckingham Society have put into this plan to make sure that it's a workable plan, and Sheena and officers, yeah. I don't usually mention by name, but officers. I think we need to actually have because what we cannot fall foul of or attract the invitation of as an individual who wants to, or individuals who want to parry themselves over the residents of Buckingham, because we are in a great advantage. We've actually done a plan which has offered development protections it still is offering development protection and is quoted now in local plans, and it's quoted in there. So how we do that, I think we need to seek some guidance about what happened. It might be worth our town clerk talking to their town clerk to understand exactly the methodology around that, so it comes as independently, not myself, and have our strategy when we launch, because taking my guidance, when we launch our plan, we need to have a proper strategy about how we promote it before we get into that further situation. And we need to ask quite why it is such that you can canvass in if you're in an election, in an election period, both parties are allowed to canvass. It seems totally wrong in any sort of election that both parties were not allowed to canvass, and the council who voted for it unanimously, or mostly unanimously, I understand, to agree it, were not allowed to canvass. There's something wrong there. We need to establish what it is, and always be aware of these things.
Robin, if you could wind up.
They may come to us, and we don't want that.
John?
Just a question, we may not know the answer to this, but if the referendum, when the referendum happens, and say something similar occurs and we lose the referendum, does that simply default to the existing neighbourhood plan, or do we lose that too?
Good question.
Yeah.
Very good question.
We could ask excellent question. Well-paying consultants for all these questions, so we'll put that to them, Jamie.
2 points. One is I don't think Buckingham is like Beaconsfield. I mean, I don't sense, does anyone else sense there's a groundswell of something we've got up to get us out there. So I'm hoping that what Councillor Suchbury says doesn't translate from Beaconsfield up here. But the point I was interested in, right at the very beginning of your introduction, you were talking about housing numbers.
Yeah.
And did I hear 60,000?
Yeah, do you want to hear them again?
I heard 35,000, I heard 60,000.
35,000 was the worst case under the local plan in December 2023, but the new NPF
is now
July 2024 has raised that to 60,912.
Can I just say that, I mean, wonderful, I mean, if you want to have that number of houses, and I'm sure people need them, but I know people are going to get very excited about affordable housing. And I always think that's such a con, because if they're affordable for one term and then somebody sells them on into the market, is anybody going to start talking about social housing?
If I could just say about the Beaconsfield Buckingham comparison, we don't have a green belt. It was a concerted campaign about protecting the green belt down there. And Sheena this afternoon has assured me there have been no negative comments at all after the consultation, apart from one of the developers, but Robin, you had a lot to say.
I'm just going to answer the affordability. We're waiting for 2020. I was party to a wave of trying to bring affordability into the Buckinghamshire Council. We're still waiting for the outturn of the business case, which from 2020 and 2024, of whether it's economical to pursue it. I will be writing this evening to establish when that will be brought forward. On the numbers, we are talking of theoretical numbers which are being bandied around. What we really need to see is the real numbers which will come out of the consultation of when people are responding. So what we're getting now is a political campaign round of observations of possible numbers, comment on the real numbers, not those projected numbers by political individuals. That is the number you can agree with or disagree with, like or dislike. We haven't got the real numbers. The real numbers will come when the consultation is finished. All the assumptions are put forward and come back. They may be larger, smaller, or indifferent.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Lucy.
I was just going to ask if the number that you quoted was the same figure that other people have bandied around like 100,000, and whether that was a potentially more, and there was the whole.
That was when East-West Expressway was.
No, I was more thinking of when the leader of the Shire Council was saying that the
No.
current incumbent government were going to force us to put
Well, this is
100,000.
the figures from the Shire Council this morning, but
Yeah.
they are changeable all the time.
I was just asking
Hourly,
if
yeah.
contextually if that
Hourly.
was the same.
Yeah. We can only get by what we
It's,
say.
it's all conjecture still, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was asking.
If I could just finish then on
Yeah.
Quarterly Forum, the other issue that came up was SIL, community infrastructure level, which we will be taking on in the north and central areas.
Yeah.
By autumn, winter 2025, there will be public consultations starting this winter at 6 to 8 weeks. They're going to balance it out so that the whole of Buckinghamshire has CIL as the national infrastructure levy has been forgotten. That's all I have to say.
So that'll be
Catherine,
Christmas then.
Robin, anything that you wish to add, Catherine?
Because of the Quarterly Forum meeting, there's a certain amount of patting on the back about enforcement wins. I discovered that apparently we have a Rycote Court, which was an enforcement win. So I went and had a look. And Rycote Court was actually in Aylesbury. It's in Buckingham Street, Aylesbury.
It's surprising such confidence.
At least I've managed to sort out that Swan Paul Car Park isn't in Aylesbury.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right, that brings us to item 8, which should be chairman's items. It's the fall off the agenda. Member permission, if we could, chairman's items. I'll just cover it tonight, please. This is about the date of the next accessibility trip, which Paula organises, which is Wednesday, the 16th of October. That's this Wednesday. Thank you everyone who's going to take part in that. Other than that, date of next meeting, Monday, 11th of November. And with that, we end the meeting. Thank you.
Catherine.